There is a subtle, almost imperceptible gap between the moment you change the way you perceive life and the moment the energetic field around you starts to respond. A gap that most people pass through with their eyes closed, believing that nothing has changed, when in fact, everything has already begun to reorganize. It's as if reality breathes with you, but with a delay of seconds between your new internal state and the way the external world begins to reflect that change. In this invisible space between cause and effect, a silent transformation takes place, a reconfiguration in the quantum field that precedes any physical sign. It's the moment when the universe adjusts the lines of probability, realigns frequencies, tests the consistency of your new vibration, and decides, almost like an intelligent echo, what will manifest for you in the coming days. What few people realize is that reality does not respond to what you think in a logical or linear way. It responds to your presence, your vibration, to what you energetically sustain in the seconds right after your internal state changes. And it is exactly there that many return to the old pattern, because they don't see an immediate sign, because they feel the same environment, the same circumstances, the same familiar sensations, and believe that nothing has changed. But today, you will understand what really happens in that gap. You will see more clearly what is moving behind what seems still, because while you believe that everything is standing still, the field has already begun to reorganize. The first thing that changes is not what you see, it's what you emit. The quantum field, contrary to what many imagine, does not wait for big decisions, external actions, or visible transformations to start responding. It reacts to your frequency. And the frequency changes at the exact moment your internal observation shifts. This response happens at such a subtle level that it's almost impossible to perceive with common senses. There's no sound, there's no flashing light, there's no explicit physical sensation announcing, now everything has started to change. What actually happens is a vibrational adjustment, a silent recalibration that moves the invisible fabric of reality long before any evidence appears in the physical plane. It's important to understand that physical reality is always a delayed effect. It is the last layer of a process that starts in the invisible. When you change your way of observing, the field around you immediately detects this alteration in internal state. It's as if a new password was emitted, a new energetic signature, a new silent command sent to the lines of possibility. The field does not work with the concept of time as you know it. It responds to states of being. Your new frequency, the new point of emotional and vibrational alignment, already begins to interfere with probabilities, redirecting paths, dissolving realities that were in progress, and initiating others, all before you have any physical sign that something has changed. That's why many people give up at the start of the process, because they don't see immediate results, because they don't feel a difference in the external environment. But what happens in those first seconds is as real as any future manifestation. The difference is that this reality, for now, is happening in a preformed field, in the space where particles are still reorganizing, in the place where the invisible is still invisible. Neuroscience, when studying the field of attention and presence, already shows that the focus of your consciousness has the power to alter brain circuits and emotional patterns almost instantly. But what few understand is that the same principle applies to the quantum field. Your observation is a creative act, a vibrational collapse, a point of choice that redefines upcoming events. It's like tuning into a new radio station. The moment you turn the dial, the frequency changes, even if you're not yet clearly hearing the new music. There's a delay, a small gap, between the moment of internal choice and the moment when the external signal stabilizes. And it's in this space between internal change and external reflection where many revert to the old pattern. They feel the absence of signs as confirmation that nothing happened. And with that, they begin to doubt. And by doubting, they energetically return to the previous state. The field perceives this oscillation. It reads your current vibration, not your past intention. That's why it's essential to understand that what changes first is you. More precisely, it's your emission field. It's the frequency field you occupy by sustaining the new observation. Physical reality, with all its details, will start to respond, but in its own time. And that time depends on the density of old beliefs, the emotional force you still invest in old patterns, and your ability to remain in the new state of choice. The field reacts instantly to your internal change, but dense reality needs time to realign all the pieces. Thinking of this as a silent orchestra can help. When the conductor raises the baton, the music hasn't started yet, but all the musicians are already attentive, prepared, ready for the first chord. Your new observation is that baton lift. It informs the field that your sound, your flow, your story is about to change. This understanding is what separates those who can sustain a transformation process from those who return day after day to the cycle of repetition. The field is already hearing your new signal. The question now is, can you stay aligned until the visible shows what the invisible has already begun to create? While you still walk around the house with the feeling that everything is the same, while you look out the window and see the same streets, the same people, the same challenges that seemed to be there yesterday and the day before, something is happening at a level of reality that your eyes cannot see. It's the invisible recalibration, a silent, deep, and absolutely real process that begins to unfold at the exact moment your internal observation changed. The field, which is this living intelligence that connects all things, doesn't work in a rush, but it also doesn't work in inertia. It responds to vibrational commands. And when you alter your internal state, even for a few seconds, a new geometry of possibilities begins to form around you. Lines of probability that were previously distant from you begin to approach. Paths that seemed blocked start to open in microscopic ways. People who could be part of your new reality start to be moved, even if they are still miles away. It's like steering a ship in the open sea. The instant the rudder turns, the ship's direction has already changed. But if you look out the window for a few minutes, everything will still seem the same. The horizon will be the same. The waters will still have the same texture. There's no way to immediately perceive the shift, but the trajectory is no longer the same, and the destination, silently, has already begun to change. Recalibration is an energy realignment process. The field needs to reorder millions of particles, events, encounters, conversations, and even small root deviations that, combined, will create the new circumstances you called with your new frequency. It's an invisible job, but extremely detailed. And that's why during this period, it may seem like everything is at a standstill, when in fact, movement is happening at the most essential layer of reality. Often, it's precisely at this moment that doubt arises. The rational mind begins to question, did I really make any difference? Does this internal choice have the power to change what's outside? This is the silent test, because every recalibration involves an invitation to trust. A call to vibrational permanence. If you doubt, you go back to the previous frequency. If you sustain it, the field continues realigning the pieces. There's a subtle detail that few people notice. During recalibration, it's common for some situations to seem to get worse before they get better. Because as the field dissolves old patterns, some emotional residues, old beliefs, and deep resistances may emerge as a final echo before being released for good. It's like when you clean a lake. At first, the water may seem murkier because everything that was settled at the bottom begins to rise. But later, over time, clarity settles in. Recalibration can also manifest through subtle changes in your internal dialogue. Thoughts that used to come in the form of criticism begin to be replaced by more compassionate phrases. Feelings of anxiety give way to brief moments of inner silence. Small insights begin to emerge spontaneously. These are the first signs that the field is adjusting. Another important aspect is the realignment of your emotions. During this period, you may feel a mix of lightness with a strange discomfort, as if something is leaving. But there's not yet space for the new to fully enter. This is the field reorganizing your resonance, adjusting your frequency, so it's compatible with the new reality that's on its way. And even if everything still seems the same on the outside, the invisible is in full motion. Your role is to remain, not to give in to the impulse to return to the old state just to feel safe, not to seek immediate signs to validate your choice. Because the field does not work from your hurry. It works from your vibrational consistency. This is the moment to trust the process, to remember that most of the transformation happens while you still think nothing has changed, and to understand deeply that the invisible always reorganizes before the visible can respond. Right after an internal shift, when you finally manage to change the way you perceive life, it's common for something to happen that most people interpret as a setback. It's as if, right after a moment of clarity, lightness, or awakening, life starts to bring back the old triggers, situations that provoke exactly the emotions you are trying to leave behind. People react the same way as before. Traffic remains chaotic. The answers you were expecting don't come. It seems like a contradiction, a paradox. But what is actually happening is a vibrational resistance test. The quantum field, upon noticing your new frequency, starts to reorganize possible realities. But before a new reality line consolidates, there is a period of oscillation, an interval where the field needs to confirm whether that new observation of yours is just a momentary peak of consciousness, or if it has truly become your new predominant state. And this confirmation isn't made through words, nor through declared intentions. It is made through your emotional response to the first provocations that the external reality continues to offer. It's as if the field silently and almost compassionately asks, "Have you really changed? Or was it just a moment of inspiration?" The situations that arise during this period are not punishments. They are not tests in a punitive sense. They are echoes of your previous vibration, trying to find resonance while the new state is still being rooted within you. This stage is critical because many, upon noticing the old patterns returning, interpret this as a sign that the shift wasn't real, that the internal change wasn't strong enough. And with this thought, they end up returning to the same frequency as before. They react with the same fears. They act with the same emotional defenses. And, without realizing it, they undo the recalibration that the field was trying to consolidate. That's why understanding the nature of these tests is so important. They are not an invitation to discouragement, but a call to remain. It's the moment to choose, consciously, to respond differently, even when everything inside you screams to react as before, even when the old fear, the old guilt, or the self-sabotage pattern tries to take control. When the field perceives your emotional consistency, when you can maintain your new frequency, even in the face of discomfort, something stabilizes. The new reality line starts to gain vibrational density. The flow, which until then seemed blocked, begins to open. The challenging situations that emerged as tests begin to lose strength. It's as if the universe, upon noticing your sustained choice, finally says, "Now yes, we can move forward." And there's a subtle but very powerful detail. The more you understand what's happening, the less you react with fear, because you realize that each immediate obstacle, each emotional provocation, is just one last verification before a new cycle begins. If at this moment you feel that you're going through these tests, that old patterns are trying to pull you back, and that even with all your intention to change, some situations still challenge you, know that this is part of the process. It's not a mistake. It's not a sign of failure. It's just the field asking if you're really ready to sustain this new way of observing. If what you're hearing now makes sense for the moment you're living, if you feel you're exactly in this phase of emotional resistance, where everything seems to challenge your new frequency, like this video and write in the comments, "I choose to remain." Let this be your vibrational anchor until the invisible begins to yield and the visible finally responds. When the invisible recalibration begins to gain strength and you consciously go through the resistance tests, something subtle happens. Small signs, almost imperceptible, start to appear in your perception field. They are not big events. They are not dramatic changes. They are fragments of reality, microscopic signs, announcing that the new probability line is beginning to materialize. Maybe it's an unexpected conversation where someone says exactly what you needed to hear without you having asked. Maybe it's a curious coincidence, like opening a book and finding a sentence that describes exactly what you're going through, or even an unexpected encounter with someone you hadn't seen in a long time, but who somehow brings information or an invitation that seems aligned with what you've been vibrating internally. These signs almost never come with a label saying, "Your reality is changing." They arrive subtly, camouflaged in everyday situations. A change in your internal dialogue may be one of the first indications. You realize that in the face of a situation that would previously trigger anxiety or frustration, now there's a pause, a choice for a different response, an internal silence that didn't exist before. This is the field beginning to respond, not as a visible spectacle, but as a movement of resonance. Small realignments start happening around you, an unexpected invitation, a response that was previously blocked, an intuition that arises with more clarity. Sometimes even the physical environment itself seems to behave differently. Objects falling, electronics fluctuating, situations unfolding in an unplanned way, but somehow bringing symbolic meaning for those who are attentive. Another common sign is the emergence of new ideas. Projects that previously seemed distant start to seem possible. People who were previously unavailable start to approach. And most importantly, your internal sense of alignment increases, even if external results are still discrete. Discomfort can also be a sign, because often, when the field starts to yield, it needs to push out the last layers of resistance. This may come in the form of more intense dreams, repressed emotions surfacing without warning, or even situations that require choices you previously avoided. The key here is conscious observation, because if you're not attentive, you might completely ignore these signs. You might look at them as mere coincidences, as unimportant details, and thus miss the opportunity to energetically reinforce your new frequency. When you recognize these signs, even the smallest ones, you create a cycle of vibrational reinforcement. By internally validating that reality has already started to move, you sustain your new observation with more strength. This creates a cascading effect. Small signs turn into bigger events, coincidences become synchronicities, and what was once just an invisible energetic alignment starts to take shape in the material world. It's at this moment that most people begin to realize that the process is real, that the change wasn't just internal, but that the field is, in fact, responding. Even if timidly, even if in small steps, reality is already yielding. From here on, your role is to remain listening, to stay present, to avoid returning to the disbelief pattern, because the field continues to respond to what you vibrate, and each new sign is a confirmation that the invisible is already working in your favor. The first microscopic signs are the beginning of a new narrative, small chapters of a bigger story that only those who observe deeply can truly perceive. The first hours and days after an internal shift are, without a doubt, one of the most delicate and decisive periods of the entire vibrational transformation process. It is during this interval that your new frequency is still stabilizing. It's when the quantum field, even though it has already received your new observation signal, is still testing the consistency of that vibration before beginning to collapse realities in a more visible way. At this moment, the mind's natural tendency is to seek quick evidence. A part of you will want to look at the external world and immediately find concrete signs that everything has changed. But this anxiety for confirmation is often what interrupts the flow. Because every time you seek anxiously, you are, in fact, emitting a signal of doubt. And the field, as always, responds to what you vibrate, not to what you desire. That's why the first step to enhance the shift is to cultivate presence. Be conscious of your emotions, your thoughts, and especially your quality of attention. Observe without attachment the impulses of the mind that try to bring back the old questions. It's not about repressing what you feel, but about clearly recognizing that each doubt-filled thought is an invitation to return to the old pattern. Internal silence is a powerful tool during this period. Even if only for a few minutes throughout the day, allow yourself to pause. Breathe deeply. Close your eyes and simply feel the new vibration you accessed. This simple act of presence is like energetic anchoring. It communicates to the field that you are choosing to remain. Another essential care is with your internal dialogue. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself in the hours following the shift. Avoid phrases like "this won't work" or "nothing has really changed." These small statements are like vibrational codes that begin to undo the newly created alignment. Instead, cultivate silent affirmation phrases. It's not about creating forced or overly positive affirmations, but about maintaining a state of conscious neutrality, recognizing that the process is underway, even if the signs are still subtle. Emotional choices are also crucial during this period. If situations arise that pull you back into the old pattern, notice the invitation the field is making. It's like an unannounced test, where the question is always the same. Are you going to react as before, or will you sustain your new observation? Every emotional response of yours, every choice not to react with the same fears, reinforces the new reality line. Another important aspect is focus. During the first days, keep your attention on the internal sensations of alignment. Don't get attached to the external details that haven't changed yet. The field responds to sustained frequency, not intermittent frequency. This means that the longer you remain connected to your new vibrational state, the faster and more solid the materialization of changes will be. Small presence rituals can help a lot. It could be a moment of silent gratitude upon waking, a pause to breathe before reacting to any external stimulus, a more conscious look at the sky, at a tree, at a simple detail of the environment, but with the intention of reinforcing your new presence in the world. Avoid seeking proof. The quantum field does not respond to your desire for control. It responds to your state of surrender and trust. Therefore, the more you let go of the need for immediate results, the freer the field is to reorganize probabilities according to your new frequency. Finally, remember that the shift is a continuous process. It is not an isolated moment. The first hours and days are just the beginning of a new energetic dance between you and reality. Your mission is simple, but deeply challenging: to remain, to observe, to feel, and to sustain, until the invisible finally begins to speak louder than your old doubts. There is a moment when the invisible, that which you sustained with so much presence, so much attention, and emotional resistance, begins to cross the subtle membrane between the quantum field and matter. It's when reality, which until then seemed inert, immobile, resistant, begins to yield visibly. This is the instant when what was previously just a vibrational intention turns into fact. For many, this moment arrives discreetly. There is no grand announcement, nor a dramatic change of scenery. Often, it's an unexpected message that appears on your phone, an opportunity that, until days ago, seemed impossible, a person who crosses your path and somehow brings exactly what you needed to hear or experience. It's as if the puzzle pieces start to fit together, one by one, before your eyes. What seemed like chance suddenly starts to make sense. Coincidences become synchronicities. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable walls now reveal hidden doors. What seemed like a blockage transforms into a clear redirection, and you begin to realize that everything you sustained internally over the past days was, in fact, what prepared this new scenario. But there is something even deeper in this moment. The silent recognition that reality has always been a mirror of your frequency, and that the change you see on the outside is nothing more than the consequence of the change that happened inside you. This is the true power of the conscious observer. It's not about controlling the external world, but about influencing, with your presence, how the world responds. It's common that, upon perceiving the first physical manifestations, a mix of relief and admiration arises. Relief for seeing that the process worked. Admiration for realizing how precise the quantum field is, how it organizes every detail so orchestrated that it seems like magic to those still looking from the outside. But for those who lived the process internally, it becomes clear that it wasn't magic. It was vibrational consistency. And even when external changes start to happen, it's important to maintain the awareness that the process continues. The field does not stop responding. Each new manifestation creates a new cycle of observation and reaction. That's why when reality begins to restructure, the invitation is not to relax in the sense of neglecting your vibration, but to deepen your presence even more. It is at this point that many people get lost, because upon seeing the first results, they tend to return to automatic mode, assuming that now they can let the field act on its own. But the truth is that the flow only sustains itself when you remain in tune with it. The new reality is fertile ground, but your conscious observation is what keeps this soil nourished. Another striking aspect of this moment is the emergence of a new internal confidence. No longer a confidence based on external results, but a confidence based on the direct experience of having lived a process of vibrational transformation. This confidence becomes a foundation for the next cycles, because from here on, you already know the way. You already recognize the signs. You already understand how the field moves, and how your presence shapes every detail of your journey. And when you look back, at the moment when everything seemed immobile, at the days when you sustained the new observation even without any evidence, you will realize that that was the real turning point. Because it was there, in the invisible, that your new reality began to be born. What you see now is just the delayed reflection of a choice that had already been made long before. Inside you. We've reached the end of our journey, and now perhaps you are looking at your reality with different eyes. What seemed stagnant, in fact, was just in recalibration. What you called resistance was the field waiting for your consistency, and what once seemed like silence was just the invisible working in layers that your senses couldn't yet reach. Now, you already know. Each observation choice, each new frequency you sustain, is creating, right now, the scenario of your coming days. There's no going back to the illusion that nothing is happening, because it is, and it always has been. If you've made it this far, and feel that something inside you has already begun to move, write in the comments, "I acknowledge the invisible movement." That way I'll know you stayed until the end, and that you are ready to sustain your new field.